Hello, and welcome to this overnight taste challenge. It's still dark here. Now, it might be dawn at where you live on the East Coast, Eastern states, but still dark here and definitely in California. Now, in those kind of areas, now I have two 40% alcohol French brandies. This is Ciroc BS. Um, French brandy distilled from French grapes, product of France. Okay, I think we get it. This is a product that was introduced in 2018. You probably know that Ciroc is famous for French vodka, but they do make a brandy. They never expanded to a VSOP or an XO, to my knowledge. Maybe the sales weren't really that great, and they figured, well, just keep it simple, very simple, BS. Very special is what they call it, but anyway. It runs 30 something dollars at Walmart. They keep it locked in the cabinet because I guess people like to steal Ciroc products. Interestingly, Ciroc is owned by Diageo. I think they were started by Diageo, but it could have been a buyout because Diageo is famous for buyouts. But Ciroc is a French vodka company mainly, but their vodka is made from grapes. Most people make vodka from grain like corn and wheat, or in the case of Poland and Russia, Eastern Europe, they make it from potatoes generally. But in France, Ciroc makes vodka from grapes, which you can do that. Okay, so that now whether it tastes different or what things like that, I don't know. I bought some vodka from Mexico when I know where to buy it today, which is made from sugar cane. You know, the juice. It's a kind of different tasting thing, but it is good once you get excuse me, I'm coughing those goldenrod. Once you get used to it, wasn't coughing all morning until I sat here. Montmartre extra fine Napoleon grape brandy. I could not find a trademark. Could not find trademark information on this. It says imported by Maison Ferrand. Now, Maison Ferrand is a famous French cognac company. So, do they also make French brandy? Most likely they do outside of the cognac region, and it might all be, value price, so to speak, kind of thing. So, but that's fine. A lot of companies, most liquor companies have their upper echelon, super premium products, hundreds of dollars a bottle, if not thousands when it comes to cognac. And then they'll do their mid-range stuff that you see everywhere, naturally. And then this also has a cork. And they'll do some value-priced budget brands, however you want to express that. Price-conscious brands. And a lot of times they'll sell them under an alias name, like a different, make it look like it's a different company, names like Mr. Thrifty or whatever, Mr. Thrifty beer. But if you investigate this carefully, I think you'll see that it was made by Falstaff. Yeah. Brewed especially for Thrifty Discount Liquor and Wines Company. I know that's a chain up around North Louisiana, Shreveport. Mr. Thrifty liquor stores. I've been in there. They have an amazing array of beer, wine, and liquor. So that's it might be in Texas also, in Arkansas, but I know it's in Shreveport, Louisiana. And they have a lot of locations, but this was made for them by Royal Brewing Company of Louisiana, New Orleans, Louisiana. I know that zip code. Well, it's not. There's no Royal Brewing. There was not a Royal Brewing. It was Falstaff. But they would, just like these liquor companies, use these little deceptive names. It's allowed, as long as it's registered with the government as, okay, we own, Buffalo Trace. We own County Line Distilling, so it's registered. Okay. And in fact, I don't even think they have a trademark indication on this product. I don't see anywhere where it says registered trademark of the U.S. Patent Office. So I think they're just selling it without a trademark, and they're just assuming no one's going to try to copy it. You don't have to get a trademark, but you run the risk of losing your product to someone else. Like that's what happened with Pop Tarts, in a sense, because okay, they're both very dark copper. I mean, dark. These things are so dark. I'll tell you about that story real fast after I show you the screen share. Ciroc VS brandy is a very special spirit crafted from fine grapes grown in the South, an area known for time-honored quality and craftsmanship. The result is this mod expression of a classic French brandy. And then you give you taste, aroma, tasting, finishing notes, which I'm not going to read all that because you can look that up. And then there's obviously a bunch of cocktail ideas. It makes sense. That makes sense because VS brandy is typically used in cocktails. Can you sip it? I mean, yeah, you can sip it, but it's not exactly designed for sipping. It's designed as what they call a mixer in the industry, okay? But if you want to sip a mixer, there's no problem with it. Okay, I was reading about that back in there was an article in the paper too, like 60th anniversary. I think I'm almost certain it was 1965, mid 60s. General Mills was about to come out with a product called toaster pastries, that you could put in come in a foil. I'm trying to think of the word. A foil, I guess, aluminum foil wrapper, and you put them in the toaster, and they come out, and you eat them. Different flavors. I think when they first came out, they only had like 3 flavors. But somehow Kellogg found out they were coming out with it. Okay. These companies do have industrial spies. They have people they hire to be on their payroll, but they'll secretly start working for another company, allegedly just to get a job, but it's really to get information from the people on who's really employing them. And they give them information. So they got this information that they were going to come out with toaster pastry. So Kellogg hurried up and developed it in a crash development. Like they had never thought of doing that. And they rushed it to the market, and they beat General Mills to the punch. And so Pop-Tarts became like the flagship. Everybody calls them Pop-Tarts, even though it's just a brand name of that industry. And so General Mills was like, damn. But they did trademark the name Toaster Pastries, but Pop-Tarts was like the lead thing now. Of course, all the companies make them these days, But that's sort of an example, but a better example is like Captain Marvel. DC Comics, you probably heard of DC, Superman, Batman, Black Canary, and all these characters. They had owned the rights to Captain Marvel, but they had done nothing with it for over a decade. And Marvel Comics was watching them close and said, look at these dummies. The trademark is going to expire, because if you don't renew the trademark and pay the fee and use it, actually, if you don't even use it, it'll expire after a certain number of years, because they'll say you abandoned it. So they just waited for that date. They said, are they going to really let it expire? And Marvel had developed their own Captain Marvel character, only for one reason, to get at DC. So the day that thing expired, boom, here comes Marvel with their new Captain Marvel, and they had the trademark on it. They had got it registered and everything. And so the DC Comics people, now owned by who? Warner Brothers, And Marvel now owned by Disney, but not back then. But they said, oh, what did we do? So now they had to start calling it Shazam. They hurried up and trademarked the name Shazam, but they can't call the book Captain Marvel or the character, even though everybody knows that's who it is. So that's an example of that. So you could sell this without a trademark, do what you want to do. But if somebody steals, you can't say they stole it because you never registered, then you kind of screwed. So, but I guess they're figuring, it's a low shelf product, more or less. Ain't nobody gonna try to steal it. And I've got a number of liquors in my house that are not trademarked. They're just working under the assumption that nobody's gonna try to steal it. So it makes no difference to me, but it's hard to find out when it was introduced. Like, they don't have a website. They don't talk about it on their website, their main, Maison Ferrand website. So there's no way to know. Now, Sazerac, they're very meticulous. Anything they put out, I don't care how low shelf it is, they're going to have it trademarked. You can look it up, Iron Wheel, American Blended Whiskey, boop, there it is. Came out in 2019, I believe, and all that. So they're careful about it. For the most part. Some of the trademarks I can never track down, though. Can't understand that. Like Royale Club, I don't get that. Maybe that's one that's not. Yeah, that's right. No, but it is, isn't it? Well, I can't remember, but that's a pretty low volume, low shelf product, and maybe they don't even care if somebody steals it. All right, on with the show. So appearance doesn't matter. Price matters, because the Montmartre was about $17 to $18. Can't remember the exact price, but it's a total wine about $17 or $18. I don't think the price has changed since I bought it last year. The Ciroc usually run about $30. But I found it for $28 at a store on the West Bank of Jefferson Parish. Because some parishes in Louisiana, the Mississippi River runs through the parish. So they call it East Bank and West Bank. And even the radio stations will be different. On the East Bank, it's WWL, for instance. And on the West Bank, it'll be KD, whatever. It'll start with a K. The radio station will start with a K. That's something to do with the airwaves designation back to the 1920s. Anyway, and they get different beer distribution too. Like, you go to the East Bank, you can find the beer. You go to West Bank, you never see it, or vice versa. Strange. Kind of like the designation cutoff point for some products, like with Coors years ago. So if a person lives in New Orleans, they could live west of the Mississippi River and also east of the Mississippi River, depending on what neighborhood you're in. Okay. This smells like standard brandy. There's nothing special or bad about it. It's just regular, meaning raisins. I guess brandy kind of smells like raisins. It's made from grapes. If you've never smelled brandy, it's kind of hard to describe it, but it smells like liquor, basically. Does it smell like whiskey? No. So if you try something different, if you've always been drinking whiskey and you want to branch out, say, I want to try something different, try brandy to be a whole different world. You may like it. Some people don't like it, vice versa. Some people love brandy, can't stand whiskey. Some people love whiskey, can't stand brandy. We know how that goes. Yeah, same. So the aroma is just normal, okay? Smells like grapes distilled. Well, the way they make brandy is first they make wine. Most of these brandy companies are wineries, and they sell wine, but then they also have a big area where they distill the wine into liquor. So they make wine first. Like E&J Gallo, they make wine, that. But then they also have operations where they take that wine and they distill it into liquor called brandy. Just like whiskey is beer, but they don't add hops to it and age it like beer. No, they just take that basic beer malt base, like you say, malt beverage, and then they distill it into whiskey. well, actually into a distillate that becomes whiskey after they age it in oak. But or you could just start filtering it and get it clear like vodka, and then you could add flavoring and coloring to it and have a flavored malt beverage, which they do, which is what Smirnoff does. See, Smirnoff, you know, they're famous for vodka, right? But they got two avenues for that beer, that grain beer. They can go vodka, or they'll go flavored malt beverage. Of course, the malt beverage must contain malted barley and hops. Well, that's a different avenue. Um, can you make vodka out of barley? Of course, if you want to. Be cheaper to use corn. I believe corn is cheaper grain as well as wheat, but it's all up to the company. All right, so appearance tie, aroma tie, price not a tie, twice the price, really almost 17.30. So you're gonna pay $13 more. That's a minimum, $13 more. Taste. Okay, I know this is Montmartre already because it tastes like a chocolate liqueur. It's strange. I knew it. I don't even need labels. I got a letter M down there. You see. It's strange. Let's go over here. This tastes like brandy. Good, standard, enjoyable, well made, premium price brandy. Could it compete with Hennessy or Courvoisier? Well, it's priced around their level, so, or Remy Martin. Yeah, it's basically on the market to compete with them. Hennessy VS, Ciroc VS, they pretty much the same. You say, but Hennessy's cognac. That's right, it's made in the cognac region. So in a technical sense, it's different. In a practical material sense, I mean, you know, if you want to pay $3 more for Hennessy, this your business, you know, go ahead. Maybe it's more than that. I don't know what you've gained. You say, oh yeah, but I show up at the party, I got my Hennessy. 10 years ago, that might have impressed people. Now, you probably notice Hennessy has kind of lost its luster. I don't think younger people care about it. Maybe middle-aged people. They say, I got a cassette tape of LL Cool J and my Hennessy. But that's nice. But these things are cyclical and they go through, you know, cycles where they're popular and the hip thing, it's cool, and then it's like not so cool. If you're into that, I don't care about that. I'm just remarking about the industry. Now, it tastes like they accidentally put a chocolate liqueur in a brandy bottle. Could that have happened? Well, I guess it could have. We see it seem like every month there's a news report about a recall happening because they put alcohol, an alcoholic drink, and an energy drink because the company makes both, and they screwed up their production line, and they had to hurry up and get it out the store because they got people buying energy drinks and they drinking alcohol. They don't know it. They said, oh Lord. So that was a recent example. And but there was something just last week with something to do with, I think, peanuts, and they didn't mark it or put it in a product that's not supposed to have peanuts, and it's like, oh, they had to recall. So this is very strange. It's almost like I want to go in a year and buy another bottle of this to see. Now, if that next bottle I buy, and I think I'm going to do it. Well, I don't know. I got to think about it. I don't really feel like spending $18 to find out. But if I buy that bottle and it tastes like regular brandy, that's going to make me convinced that they put the wrong thing in here, because I don't think brandy should taste like a chocolate liqueur. I like chocolate. Actually, I love it. And I love chocolate liqueurs, and it's very enjoyable, but it's very non-standard. If you use this as an introductory to brandy, people would be thrown for a loop. The first day I tried it, when I did my, my recorded review solo thing, no challenges, no taste challenge, I thought, tastes like chocolate liqueur. I don't understand it. I don't get it. Will any of these taste challenges, so-called, be an actual challenge? No, 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 no. There's no way I'm going to confuse any brandy I own with this. So I'm going to cut those videos short, I think, I hope, because I want to get through it and then get on to rum. Now, the rum I have will be competitive. It's it's a value price thing, but I know it's an important product because I see it all the time at numerous stores, Safeway, Bonds, Shaw's, Amigos, Jewel Osco, Albertsons. Well, they're all owned by Albertsons. Albertsons is like Kroger. They own like 1,001 store chains, it seems like. But if you go to any of those Albertsons stores, assuming they sell liquor, now some don't. It depends on your state. Some states are real strict, about that. In Louisiana, grocery stores sell liquor. They have their own liquor section. Walmart has their liquor section here. Other states, like Maryland, you can't sell beer, wine, or liquor in a grocery store. But all those Albertsons subsidiaries sell Kings Bay Silver, Kings Bay Gold, and I think there's a Kings Bay spiced rum, which I was never interested in buying because I don't really deal with spiced rum. I'm not into those rum liqueurs. Not against them, just not into it. Is it a private label? Well, if it may as well be. And I know who makes it. I know it's Glenmore. In other words, Sazerac. I was about to say Buffalo Trace, but same people. But it might not technically be a private label, but it might be a product that's generally sold at the Albertsons stores. Now you might see it at another liquor store, so don't say, "Oh, I saw it at this independent liquor store." I know I see Bandolero at independent liquor stores. That's a tequila that you see at all the Albertsons. So I'm saying it's probably not technically a private label, but it's generally a private label. Now in the United States, Wernesgrüner beer is a private label because it's only sold at Aldi, but it's not an Aldi brand. So how does that work? Because they got a contract with the owners, which is Carlsberg Brewing, Carlsberg, famous company. They own Wernesgrüner these days, and they made a deal with Aldi that they would be the only store to sell it in the United States. Okay, so in the United States, in effect, it is a private label for Aldi, although it's not an Aldi brand. It's owned by Carlsberg. So that's a contract that they have, that they would only sell it there. Well, they're allowed to do that. Now, if you go to Europe, you say, well, I'm in the Netherlands. They got Wernesgrüner at every different beer store. I know it's not a private label in Europe. Okay, so that's the confusion there. I've had people tell me that it's an Aldi brand. It's not an Aldi brand, except for the U.S. market, you understand? Or it's tied to Aldi. Does Walmart have some ties like that? Probably. Walmart being as big as they probably have exclusive. That's what it's called, an exclusive contract. They do probably have those agreements with some big companies. Say, well, look, only sell it to us. Okay. I think Yard Machines is a private label for the Home Depot, but it's made by a big company. They make all kind of different brands of lawnmowers, but they probably all about the same thing. There used to be a private label automobile called Allstate. It was sold by Sears. Because remember, Sears used to own Allstate Insurance, but it was called an Allstate. It was a car, an actual literal car you could buy only at Sears. That only lasted 2 years. I guess that didn't go over too well, but you'd have to order it. but it wasn't made by Sears. Sears didn't have a automobile a plant. It's just contracted with somebody. I don't know who made it, Hudson or Studebaker, one of those independent car companies that may be struggling. I don't think it was Chrysler or General Motors or Ford. Was it a bad vehicle? I'm not aware of that. It was unusual. It was a compact car. It was an economy car, and that was unusual in the early 1950s because gasoline was so cheap, people wouldn't worry about gas mileage back then or size and all. But some people bought it as something different, There'd be a collector's item today, would be worth a fortune. I know Sears used to sell their own motorcycles. I think it was just called Sears, but they might have been a name. I remember he's still living. I remember this man who lived in my town. He had 2 different Sears motorbikes. He would go out. They weren't dirt bikes, but he would go out into the woods when he would go hunting and ride up in the hills of North Louisiana, which is very hilly, and use it. So, but he bought them at Sears, motorcycle. Remember when Sears was a big company? But it was the same story. You had to order it. You say, I like this motorcycle. You order it. In a week or 2, they'll call you or send you a postcard. Oh, it's available at this pickup location. You go buy it. I mean, you go pick it up with your receipt. You already bought it. But it was made by, obviously, some famous motorcycle company. Just like Sears televisions were made by a famous, obviously, television company or a well-known, I think, Korean television company. Kenmore washer and dryer was made by Whirlpool. High quality, because I got a Whirlpool washer and dryer from 1990 and still works. And I'm going to keep running it till it dies. So, final story. You got your name brands. You got your off brands, which are usually made by the name brand companies. And then you have, but they are independent ones. And then you have your private labels, which are usually almost always made by a major company. But they try to distance themselves from it. So the winner here is hard to say. Well, I guess the winner, I don't know. I don't know how you would feel about this chocolate flavor. This is bizarre. But it's a very good flavor. Can't deny that. And it is $17. This one is a more authentic. This is what brandy is supposed to taste like, French brandy. So definitely a more standardized, expected product. The price is fair. It's $30, but it tastes like it should be $30. So I felt like I had a benefit when I got it for $28. So I would recommend it. In fact, I would highly recommend it. So if you ever see Ciroc, don't hesitate. Buy it. I don't think you're going to complain. I haven't tried their vodka, but I'm sure it's very good because you always see people buying Ciroc. And then they have all their flavored vodkas, which obviously are probably very good. So anyway, thanks for watching. Next time, Wednesday, tomorrow, I'll try to do, I have some more French brandies. And I've got one called, it's the headquarters in Texas, Dallas, Texas, but the lady has it contracted. Another common practice, contract liquor. You don't own a distillery. You don't own a bottling plant. You don't own rick houses to age the stuff, but you pay people to make it for you. And I have the brandy Sante Louis, also introduced in 2018, French brandy. And the owner is kind of defensive about that. She's saying, look, that's a common practice in France to have contract brandy. Kind of like she knows that some people are going to come at her like, well, it's a contract. Okay, that's not the point. The point is that it tastes good. Does it taste good? Yes, definitely. You hear these people on these rants with whiskey, especially bourbon. I'm not buying that. Why not? It tastes bad? No, it's made in Indiana, but they bottle it in Iowa. Okay. It's not a real distillery. Okay, it's not. You're right. How does it taste? Wow, that's pretty good. Huh. But you wouldn't buy it because it comes from Indiana. Okay, I got you. Bizarre, but okay. If that's what you want to do. That's your game. Play it. All right. Well, thanks and see y'all later. Bye bye.